This week's class clown is a pioneer of the UK hidden camera show, an incredible travel writer and a fellow I'm a Celeb graduate. In this episode, we get into his childhood in Beirut, being sacked as a news correspondent and launching Trigger Happy TV, which he is currently touring the 25th anniversary of. You can get tickets now. This is the fantastic Dom Joly. So thank you for coming on.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
I greatly appreciate it.
We've bumped into each other so many weird times.
Pilots.
Well, more like...
pilot?
Well, I bumped into you in Brighton a couple of times because you know my friend Matt Campion.
Yes.
Then I bumped into you at Glastonbury, but you seemed very stressed
Yes.
at Glastonbury. And then I asked you on my speakeasy and you came on and you fucking smashed it.
Oh, bless you.
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lovely gig.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I just
Yes.
had Red Richardson on.
Oh, great.
I loved him. And I had James Ellis on last one. Yeah,
James Ellis?
Yeah.
James Ellis is amazing.
With the frizzy hair.
Yeah, the big hair.
Oh, God.
What a comedian.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
He was really good.
Very good.
So anyway.
So thank you for coming on. So I thought we'd just start at the very, very beginning of your life.
Yeah.
And where you were brought up and born.
Yeah, because I saw in the notes for this, it said things like, what were people in the area you grew up in supposed to be? And I'm like, that probably wasn't made for Beirut.
Yeah.
Beirut was spy, foreign correspondent, travel writer or diplomat. They're quite high achievers. Or the drummer in the Police. That was the most important thing for me. Right.
That someone had a similar upbringing to you and could become...
Yeah, because I grew up in Lebanon in an English family.
So explain that.
Well, it's quite complicated, but...
that's fine. We've got time.
All right. About 4 generations ago, my great-grandfather did something a bit dodgy, and he left under a cloud from London, and he went to a place called Smyrna, which is now Izmir in Turkey. And back then, that was under the Ottoman Empire. It was a bit like Hong Kong. It was kind of like a free trade zone, and it was kind of where people went to kind of either reinvent themselves or do something. And they went there and they set up a company and they did quite well and all was going quite well. And then the First World War happened, and because they were Brits, they were arrested by the Ottomans because the Ottomans were in alliance with the Germans, and they were marched across Turkey, put in a Crusader castle on the Syrian border in a place called Urfa, and they were there for the whole of the First World War while the Armenian Holocaust was happening around them. And I know all this because when they were released, the Foreign Office got them to do like a 70-page debriefer. So that's my big book I'm going to write one day. And then they got released into Beirut, which is nearish, and they set up a company, and so my family's been in Beirut ever since.
And what's the company?
So whenever I say it, people think I say shipping, and everyone thinks, oh, you own ships. They're shipping agents, which basically I don't really know. It didn't interest me at all. But then my sister runs it. They basically, when ships come into Beirut port, they deal with the stuff coming off, and if you want to bring stuff in and out of Beirut by sea, they kind of negotiate it. I think. I genuinely don't know.
So your sister works in the family business?
Yeah.
That goes back 4 generations?
Yeah. All men. And then my dad just took one look at me and thought, yeah, she'll do that. But it's quite impressive for her because, Lebanon's not overly Muslim as everyone thinks it is. It's Christian as well. But she's a woman in a man's world pretty much in Beirut. English woman running this company, and she's a powerhouse.
And was it just you and your siblings?
Well, she's my half-sister. I had another half-sister on her side who died of leukemia when she was 16, and then on the other side, I've got a half-brother and a half-sister, and they are half Lebanese because my mum married a Lebanese-Swiss guy before. It's very complicated, my family.
Okay, yes, yeah. So why, I suppose we could just go straight to that and ask, why did you not end up as part of the family business?
Well, now, as I approach my 58th year with no pension, no backup, I ask myself that question as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, because, dressing up as a squirrel and shouting at a mobile phone is great fun when you're 30. But now I'm like, you fucking idiot. So I've got a backdoor plan because my son has just been out in Beirut. He was there when all the pagers were exploding and stuff. He's been there for the last 2 summers working in the family business. So there might be a backdoor in for that. But yeah, very good question. I think my dad was probably quite a good judge of character. I think he just looked at me and he looked at my sister and he thought, he's not going to do it. I mean,
why did he get to choose that? Surely you had some sort of, this isn't for me.
To be honest, it was never offered. It just, my sister did Arabic at university, and then when she finished, she started doing jobs that were kind of, learning the business. And I was still younger, And by
Okay.
the time even the choice would have been there,
Yeah.
I was literally a Robert Smith lookalike from The Cure.
Great.
Like,
Yeah.
it just wasn't going to happen. Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
never
yeah.
was. But yeah, in hindsight. But it's weird because my dad didn't want to do the job. He wanted to be a writer. Like, he fought in World War II. He's much older. He fought in World War II as a Fleet Air Arm pilot. He fought in the last 6 months against the Japanese off an aircraft carrier. Got PTSD for the rest of his life. And he didn't want to do the business. He wanted to write books. I've read his books. They're fucking awful. So I'm glad he did
I wasn't
it.
expecting that.
No, they're terrible. I mean, they're just terrible. So it was a good move. So he went into family business. But I think he always felt he'd been sort of shoehorned into it and didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He was just always incredibly disappointed in me.
So, well, okay, well, maybe we'll touch on that. Maybe
There's
we
so
won't.
much to unpack.
But
here,
yeah.
Sean.
But well, I suppose how do you end up? I think it's quite obvious that being a Robert Smith lookalike doesn't sound to me as if that was common for where you grew
Well,
up.
no, this was here. I was here by then.
Oh, you were here, but
Yeah.
even I suppose
actually
even leading to that,
Well,
even becoming that.
I started wearing eyeliner at 16, and I'd wear a skirt over trousers and stuff. Like, I was quite a sort of weird fashion thing. And in Beirut, that was not a good thing at all. I mean, my dad, like, he couldn't really communicate with me. He'd write letters occasionally. And I remember at 15, I'd been on holiday with him. He wrote me a letter. He was disappointed in the length of my shorts. Yeah. So I was like, shorts, you fucking lucky shorts. We're going on to a full skirt next.
So what made you kind of? That sounds kind of rebellious.
Do you know what? I look back, I have no idea. I just noticed this. That is
This is you.
That's ground zero of my unhappiness and weirdness. Like, my parents have divorced 7 months before that.
So you're shaven round the sides and back.
Yeah, this is
shaved head.
post-goth. This is post-goth.
Okay.
This is, I like to call it, my cyberpunk period. I'm wearing eyeliner.
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah, I look fucking hardcore there.
Yeah.
And I've just finished school, and I'm interrailing, and about 10 days after this, I wake up in a hotel. This is taking the south of France. I wake up in a hotel in Rome, and I have a shattering, what I now know is a panic attack, which didn't stop for about 3 months.
Right, yeah,
And
been there.
it's not going to be funny, this, is it? I
Well,
will
it could
get
be
funny,
whatever
but
you want it to be,
But
yeah.
but yeah, so I think a lot of that I just didn't fit in. I've never fitted in. Like, in Lebanon, I was this English kid. When I got sent to boarding school at 7 here, I was this kid that lived in Lebanon and spoke languages. And even in Lebanon, I didn't really fit in my family. Like, they were a business, and I just liked. So when I was talking about the police, I remember living in Lebanon thinking, I don't want to do these jobs. Even if I wanted to do the family business, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to university. And I remember reading in a magazine that the drummer from the police, who were massive at that time, was born in Beirut. I was like, what? That's so cool. And they're called the police because his dad, Miles Copeland, was the head of the CIA in Beirut. But I remember thinking,
wow.
Yeah, it was like quite, but I remember thinking, oh my God, like, he's in the police. Maybe I could do something.
So that's perfect. I mean, that's what this is. This is why I love talking to people. Is that very reason that actually had an effect on the kind of course of your life. It was just discovering.
There are two massive moments exactly like that.
Yeah.
One was that where literally I joke, like, I've written it in books, that when you grow up in Lebanon, the people you look up to are either diplomats, foreign correspondents, travel writers, or spies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I joke about it, but actually that's kind of true. Like, those were the rock stars. Or you could go and join the Christian militia if you wanted to, but that wasn't an option. But then suddenly there was this weird thing. I was like, oh my God, I was listening, this is 1982.
Yeah.
I'm 14 or whatever. I'm listening to the police, and just, this guy was born in Beirut. He grew up here. And that made me think something else is possible.
Yes, yeah.
And then when I had that massive panic attack in Rome when I was 18, I couldn't leave the house for like 6 months in my gap year. I was like a complete mess, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I read the NME, and Matt Johnson from the band The had just done The Infected, which is my favourite album ever. And he gave this amazing, quite early on interview about how he had terrible anxiety and panic attacks. And I remember just thinking, fuck. And he did this album.
Yeah.
I don't think he realises how huge that was, because no one talked about that sort of stuff back then because it was stigmatised,
Yes.
It meant you were a nutter. And I just remember thinking, how can you have this clearly what I'm feeling and you make something like Infected? Now, I'm not claiming that I went on to record a seminal album, but it definitely made me think, yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Well, so were you turning to music because that was these musicians were kind of speaking your language.
Yeah.
They were expressing how you felt, and you didn't have that.
I had zero interest in comedy. The only comedy I had, the only thing my dad and I had in common, two things were we listened to Simon and Garfunkel. That was the only thing he could listen to that wasn't opera, and that was the only thing I could listen to. We met, so I love Simon and Garfunkel. And he had these records from the 60s, like where he played comedy records, LPs.
I would have loved that.
Oh, it's incredible. And it was a guy called Shelley Berman. Shelley Berman ended up as Larry David's dad on Curb Your Enthusiasm, yeah? But in the 60s, he was one of these kind of, he was a nightclub comic, you know, like that.
Yeah,
and he'd do
kind of New York jazz bar.
He was very
kind of,
jazz, he was very hipster. And he'd do these amazing routines where he'd pretend to be on the phone, hello, and and you'd just hear his half of the conversation, and he'd be ringing someone up the night after the morning after the night before, and you could hear that he'd just behaved terribly the night before. I was obsessed with that. Like, that was incredible.
And you discovered that was your dad's collection?
That was my dad. That was the only comedy. So when you're talking about music, I grew up, like, I was obsessed with the Beatles, then Queen, then Pink Floyd, then Bowie. The first thing I ever did when I came to London is I went to Heddon Street and had my picture taken exactly where the front cover of Ziggy Stardust was, but I had a bad mullet and I was wearing black and white spandex trousers, so it's not a great photo, so I haven't given you that one.
Well,
but,
all of that's back in.
What? Yeah, but the mullet, I don't get that. But yeah, so my first love was music, but I had no musical talent, but I'm a mouth, so I ended up in a band. I was in a band called Hang David. We ended up touring. We went to New York and stuff, played CBGBs. That's what I loved. I wanted to be in a band, but then the band kicked me out. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Oh, let me...
I'm so faring ahead all over the place.
Yeah.
This is free therapy for me, so we're here all day.
Yeah, well, I remember, I'm not qualified.
No, I know.
I don't want you having another
That's why I like
panic attack.
I know. No, I'm fine. I'm so heavily sedated, it's fine.
You just leave the money in an envelope on your way out.
Yeah.
So boarding school at 7.
Yeah.
Kind of
that's
shipped off
insane, isn't it?
to England.
Yeah. So,
Did you realise what's happening at 7 years of age?
No.
That's not explained to you?
No. And so much it's not explained to me that when I go with my parents to this house in a road called Bardwell Road in Oxford, and I go in and we meet this guy called Pa Brown. He's got a big beard, and all I remember is thinking, this guy's got a shitload of kids, because there's kids running all around this house. Yeah, I'm thinking, is he a Mormon? Like, what's going on? And then my parents go and have tea with him, and I get shown around, and then I come back down and I say, I'd like to go now, and they say, your parents have gone. I go, what do you mean they've gone? And they're gone. They didn't say anything. They didn't say goodbye or anything. And then I didn't speak to them till the next holiday, but I'd have to write a letter every Sunday, and it would literally be, dear mum and dad, where the fuck are you? Like, I hate it here. You know, this is a nest of paedophiles. And then they just read it and go, I don't think mum and dad want to read that, do they? And so my mum kept all my letters, and the approved ones would be like, dear mum and dad, I am at school. The film this weekend was The Bridge Over the River Kwai. We beat Caldecott 15-0 at rugby. Like, it's fucking insane.
Wow.
Yeah. But in their defence, they did actually send me there because Lebanon, I went in 76 and Lebanon exploded into civil war in 75, and I was at school during that. So that was a valid thing to do. But my dad sent me to the same schools he went to because he was sent at 7, and he didn't even come back in the holidays because it took so long. He used to go and just sort of stay with relatives and stuff. I mean, the whole thing is so fucked up. It's a bit like that thing I never understand, that if you're sexually abused as a kid, you're quite likely to sexually abuse people yourself. And you think that'd be the last thing you'd want to do. So my dad fucking hated every moment of his school days. So he thought, oh, better send him there. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I did not do that with my kids.
Maybe, right, yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, but not everyone feels the way you do. I know I have friends about boarding school. I have friends that went and feel the same. I also have some friends that actually have a bit of affection for it.
Well, put it this way. I grew up in the middle of a war zone, and I used to long to go back to Lebanon, to Beirut. Like, I've honestly, you know, having said that, Lebanon's an incredible place. Like, we lived in the place looked like the south of France. You go skiing in an hour, beach in an hour. It's a fucking amazing place. But I was terrified all the time there because there was bombings and kidnappings. But it was so adrenalizing that when you just went got to school, it was like having a schizophrenic existence. You'd have to write this essay, what I did in my holidays, and Tarquin would be like, well, I was in Pony Club, and I was like, I saw a beheading, it's like slightly different.
Did you really see a beheading?
I saw some severed heads, when I was going to school one day.
Well, you're a child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
wasn't good.
No, that might explain things like panic attacks years later.
The panic attacks are a mixture of I think massive PTSD from sort of 10 years of, because my dad repressed everything. So he would never show any fear. When we were being bombed, we'd all go in the basement of the house. He'd sleep in his corner room at the top of the house, a sort of like stiff upper lip shit. So I'd be terrified for him. Foreigners, Brits were being kidnapped. Every time he went to work, I was terrified he'd be kidnapped. So I had all that going on.
And that's very young too.
And I'm a tiny kid, yeah.
To not just experience that, but understand it.
I didn't understand it at all. That's why I did therapy once. Someone sent me to therapy. And the first thing they said was like, take me back. I started telling them this. And they went, oh, you're frozen at that little 7-year-old boy. And I was going, oh, fuck this, I'm out of here. Because I've thought it through so much now, and I'm aware why I'm fucked up.
Yes.
I don't need to go back and rechange my childhood.
Yeah.
But having said that, I had an amazing childhood. I fucking loved the excitement of Lebanon. I loved growing up there. And school came good when they finally allowed girls in. At 16, the last 2 years, girls came in.
Yeah.
And my school were the thickest bunch of cunts. They really were. Like, they were so stupid. And then girls, it was incredibly difficult for girls to get in. So you had all these, like, thick kids. And suddenly these really smart, very, like, worldly girls came. And I remember that we had this big dining hall. And when the girls' interviews happened, the girls would, like, do their interviews and they'd be walked through the dining hall and taken up to a balcony where they had their meal. And as they'd walk through, these would be the first girls we've ever seen, yeah? We'd all be going like, howling and going, oh, I'd give her 1 and 2. You just like, and I think it was a way of like, if you could survive that walk through the dining room, then you're probably going to be all right at school. Because it was like a horrible place.
My God.
But the moment the girls arrived, I became borderline gay. I didn't because I liked girls, but like all my friends were girls.
Oh, okay.
Because they were just smart and worldly and brilliant and like great. I used to get bullied at my public school by North London Thatcherites. It was their first like generation at a public school. I'd get bullied for being posh. The guy who now runs, well, allegedly, he's one of the people that runs Pret a Manger, yeah? He was an Essex boy. He used to bully me at school. Oi, Jolly, you're a bit posh. And I used to go, I thought that was the whole point of this place.
Right, okay. So does that mean, it seems like there's quite a lot of...
There's a lot to unwrap here.
Yeah, well, no, there's a lot to unwrap, but there's kind of basic just not fitting in. Every time you tell me something, it's just another example of not fitting in.
Well, do you know, I've sort of joked about it, but when I'm asked about my comedy, I kind of say, because I grew up reading French comedy, like I read Lucky Luke and Asterix and Tintin and weird Belgian magazines because I speak French. So my comedy was definitely European surrealism, which sounds really poncy, but it was.
No, it doesn't to me.
So even the comedy, so when I was here, I've always been someone, that's why I like writing travel books, because I like eavesdropping. I've always feel like a floater. Not that kind of floater, but like a, like a...
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone's going.
That's
I should
all right.
do the big...
Don't worry.
I should do the big hello. I'm not going to do it now. So I've always felt slightly, even when I had my panic attacks give you a kind of, I couldn't work out what was going on. It was like you couldn't explain what was going on in your brain. And the best way I explained it in the end was like your mind couldn't cope. And so it puts you on autopilot. It just switches everything off and you sort of float. I sort of feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience. I remember watching myself almost going through life normally. And I feel like that a bit all the time. I always feel I'm slightly floating. Okay, which is quite odd.
Was that the first panic attack, the one you described?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when you were 18.
That went on for, well, I mean, it went on till it really affected Trigger Happy. Like when I was, are we jumping around too much? But when I was filming the first series of Trigger Happy, when I finally, at the age of 30, having done lots of weird political stuff and been a diplomat and suddenly found, fuck, I've got this thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny and it's great. And I remember the actual moment I was dressed as the Dutch tourist with a big tall hat and I just talked gibberish to people, and we were at Sloane Square and I got at the back of a black cab And the cabbie said, "Where to, mate?" And I said, "My egg must be boiled. My egg must be boiled, please." He goes, "What?" And then I just stopped. I opened the door and I went to Sam. I said, "I don't feel well." And I just went. And that was it. I got diagnosed with clinical depression. I was in hospital for 3 weeks. And then I was at home, and they nearly closed all the Trigger Happy production down. So, because the insurance.
On the first series?
Yeah. And and I just thought.
It's not even gone out yet.
What?
At this point, you don't know the success it's going to be.
I have no idea. But I do have I have a feeling we're making something amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, this thing, since the Rome incident, it's fucked everything for me for 12 years. And I go, it's going to get me now as well. It was incredible.
Okay. So what were you like then at the boarding school? How long you're there? You're there from 7 until...
From 7 till 18, but two different ones.
Okay, so 2 different ones. Puberty. How did puberty affect you, that transition into a teenager? It's often... People seem to really kind of...
I don't think it was puberty. It was... Well, was it puberty? I mean, if we're actually talking about pubis, 14, that probably happened if you want to know, but 16, when girls started to happen, that properly.
Yeah, that kind of period where there was a transition as a young person.
It was weird because I knew that I was smart, but
why?
I just do. I don't know. You just know you're smart, but not in a traditional way. Like, I'm not an academic.
Yeah.
I just knew I was smart, and I knew that I was really quick and funny. But I also knew that I was shy, and it's that terrible thing of, us saying we're shy, stand on stage. It's like, yeah, fuck off. But I really was, like, big time. And so I started to, I was listening to a lot of early Cure. So the first the sort of Cure Goth trilogy of sort of 17 Seconds and Faith and Pornography, and just started to get more gothy. And my persona became like that girl in the film The Breakfast Club, where she sort of sits in the corner fiddling with her long fringe.
Yes.
And deep down, you're just hoping someone will go, "Who's that really interesting but really good-looking guy in the corner?" And no one ever came.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you were there.
Well, no, that's after school.
Okay,
So I've become, but even then, I'm still, I'm minutes away from my first panic attack there.
Yes.
But I know I look good there. That's one of the
Very good.
only times in my life I know I look good. But my parents wouldn't speak to me because they've, it's very complicated. But I love that photo.
Yeah. Just quickly, Sean here, just to let you know, in case you don't know already, I am currently on tour. Shows are selling out, extra dates are being put on, but if you go to seannwalsh.com, I'm all around England, and I'm a couple of dates in Wales as well throughout the rest of the year. Go to seannwalsh.com for tickets. The show's called This Is Torture. I'd love for you to come along, and hopefully I'll see you there. So when you're interested in music, did you share this love of music with anyone, or was it very much you had discovered this thing, or was there a group of you?
So I was very much, even though I lived on my own, because my parents were both married before and they both had 2 kids, one died. But so I had these sort of half siblings that were occasionally at home or not. But most of the time in Lebanon growing up, I was on my own when I was there. And
that makes sense to me, by the way, with the music, the kind of discovery of this, and so it looks like you're looking for company.
Well, I'm looking for company, but also my music first came from my older brothers and sisters. So first thing, Beatles. I hear that. I'm obsessed with Beatles, and I'm not allowed to touch their records. But the moment they leave the house, I'm putting on the Beatles record, and I remember "Can't Buy Me Love." I thought it was "Camparilla," so I'd be like "Camparilla,"
yeah.
And then Simon and Garfunkel. Then the massive moment. My dad had he had the first Range Rover, because we actually needed one because we used to go in the desert in Syria, and he got one exported, and it had this thing called an 8-track, which was it was like a big cartridge, and you'd chunk it into it. It was like a sort of Sega Mega Drive thing,
okay.
And you clunk it into the car player,
Yeah.
and the sound for that was insane. And you could only get about 10 8-tracks. So he got all his opera, but the only one we could get, and we insisted, was Pink Floyd, "Wish You Were Here." And that blew my mind apart. We used to drive into the Syrian desert, and at midnight we'd have the doors open and a bonfire, and you'd be listening to "Shine On You Crazy Diamond." It was as close to taking acid as possible.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, music, there's something I need to express, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to do it, but I felt it was going to be music at that time.
Well, because I know this is obvious to you, it might not be obvious to everyone listening or watching, but actually one of the kind of the big things about Trigger Happy was the soundtrack. And I know you know this, but it's just so interesting listening to you talk about this and then going, that all led to this series, this explosion, Trigger Happy, which was an explosion in 2000.
Do you know Trigger Happy TV was the first comedy show with a soundtrack? And I didn't realise. I didn't think that was odd. I just thought I'd failed at music, but suddenly I'm doing this stuff, but I can make it look 30 times better.
Yeah.
It was the closest I come to being a musician, because I'd put my Mercury Rev on something, and it suddenly turned quite a silly joke into something sort of weirdly beautiful.
There was a melancholy to
it was so
some of it.
melancholy.
It was fantastic.
But you know the story about
what was happening was hilarious, and yet I kind of wanted to cry.
But that's what I sort of wanted. But I didn't sit there planning that, but it made sense. All my gothiness and my musicness and what made me laugh in comedy all came into one place. And then when we took it in to Channel 4, because they left us alone. They didn't know the fuck we were. We just sat in the edit. I sat in the edit, and the drummer in my band was the editor.
This the band you got kicked out of?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we were friends still. And he did one of those things of a bit like when the Bee Gees walked off.
Clive Anderson.
One of them stayed for a little bit and then said, I better go. That was Dave, the drummer. He sort of tried to stay, give me a sympathy fuck, but no, he left. So anyway, he was the editor by then, and a proper editor, and so I knew him backwards. So if you've done editing with people, sometimes you say to an editor, can we try that? And they noodle away for half an hour, and you don't know what they're doing. And then finally they go, da-da, and it's shit. And you're like, oh, fuck. Whereas for him, we just knew what was happening. Anyway, we made Trigger Happy. I take it into Channel 4. Firstly, they say, oh my God, there's a soundtrack. There's never been a comedy show with a soundtrack. That never crossed my mind. And then they said, it's all a bit sad, isn't it? And I said, yes. And they said, we're going to have to take us to a focus group. So we went to a focus group, which was exciting enough. Sat behind a glass wall while 10 really depressed women from Essex, I remember, all women for some reason, watched the first Trigger Happy. And they finished. They laughed some of it the way through. And they go, what do you think? They go, it's funny, but it's a bit depressing, isn't it? And I was just hammering at the wall like that. And they go, what would you do if you would change this? They go, I'd put cartoon music on it. That would cheer it up. And honestly, I'm so proud that we just fought that, because people were asking us to do that and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Which just shows no one knows anything, which is my favourite expression.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So that's the music. You mentioned, by the way, just a second ago about the French comedy, about being influenced by the European comedy.
Big time.
You said it was surreal.
Yeah.
And you said, I think you said it was, what was it? Pretentious, but it wasn't. But explain that to me then. Because I don't know. So I know Asterix, but I mean, I wouldn't know what. When you say I'm influenced by it, I wouldn't know what the influence was.
So there's two generations of stuff. So growing up, because I spoke French, and everything that was I bought in Lebanon, like if you bought Asterixes, they were in French.
Yeah.
And I love reading in French. And actually, interestingly, because I've read Tintin and Asterix both in French and English, they're translated well, but it's still very different feeling to it. It's a different humour, and I can get both those, which I'm quite proud of. I like doing that. So all my things that made me laugh were all these books, and ones you've never heard of, but there's sort of 10, I don't know if you know, but French and Belgians, they love these big comic books, but they're not comics, they're like almost illustrated novels, like
graphic novels,
like an Asterix. But there's thousands of different characters, and I've read loads of those. So that really influenced what made me laugh. That was my core. And then weirdly, in sort of what Trigger Happy was doing, when I grew up, I watched early Candid Camera, like 50s, 60s Candid Camera. It was fucking amazing. It was so surreal, so dry.
When's this, Dom?
60s?
No, sorry. When have you discovered
I'm watching it
this?
when I'm 14, 15. They used to play it on Lebanese TV. And
this is...
and because it's quite visual...
Aren't you in England at that point?
Well, in the holidays.
Sorry, I was just trying to get this clear
so
in my own mind.
When I come back the holidays, there's not a lot on Lebanese TV. Yeah, there's lots to do, but I like watching TV.
Yeah.
And I discover Candid Camera, and it's black and white Candid Camera, and you don't think people were funny back then. And it's incredible, and it's so surreal. The most famous one being, they take an engine out of a car. It's an old car, obviously, because it's 1945, and then they just push it down a hill, and the guy drives it into a gas station, and he goes, the engine's gone, I don't know what's happening, it's not working. And so the guy opens up the hood, and there's literally no engine in there, and it's somehow even funnier because even the thought that someone now you go, oh, are you on YouTube? You know, but it's like absolutely. You could see his head just not comprehending anything, and I used to love that. And then kind of,
I often, sorry, I don't know if you've experienced this the other way round. I sometimes end up in a situation, and I genuinely start looking around. Are Ant and Dec involved in this?
Every podcast I do. Every podcast I do, but I'm always on the lookout for it.
Yeah. Okay, so that was just to kind of go with your point about how today, if you discovered it, it would kind of just make sense. You know, I'm on a TikTok or something like that.
But it was
but this is incomprehensible that there's no engine in the car.
And it also, you know, I don't like novels. I don't like films. I don't like theatre. I've always liked documentary. I do like films, but not massively. I like documentaries. I like reality. I've always liked reality. And so then I'm just getting to the second wave of European comedy. Then I watched this thing from South Africa, again on Lebanese telly, called Funny People. I now realise it's massively racist. It's this Afrikaans bloke. He's quite famous. He's South Africa's biggest prankster.
Right.
But basically, he was going to townships and just sort of patronising black South Africans, doing jokes. But to me, it was really funny at the time. Yeah. Now I realise, you know, with the hindsight, that politically it wasn't great, but there were some funny jokes.
Yeah.
Then terrible things happened. You know, Beatles about and Game for a Laugh. And to me, that was just about getting people angry, and it was big studio audiences. And then every time you did a trick, you go, look, there's the cameras. And I hated all that shit. But meanwhile, in Europe, in the 90s, there was a guy called Noel Goodar, and I was obsessed with him.
Before we get to Noel Goodar, I just want to pause on Beadle and Beadle's About and all of that, because it's interesting. Are you telling me that you consciously disliked that at the time?
Yeah.
And you kind of knew why you disliked it?
Yeah, I did.
That's
I
very
definitely did. I never thought of myself as a student of hidden camera, but I now realise I knew very early on that this is the genre I liked.
Yeah.
I also knew that it was the lowest genre on the rung in comedy. It was like done by idiots.
Yeah,
you know, like if you're smart, you do stand-up or you write a screenplay or stuff like that. But, you know, idiots do, fucking jocks do this sort of stuff.
Right.
Pranks, apple pie, even the word prank. I hate the word prank.
I thought you might.
So we've got to the stage where the biggest show on Saturday night when I'm 22 is Beatles About. And I like... And sort of Noel Edmonds to an extent, of the gotchas and stuff like that. And I like these things. I like the setup and people not knowing, but it's done in such a naff, massive entertainment sort of shit way to me. Like, I just think it's really mainstream. I don't think it's art, basically. Yeah. And meanwhile, there's this guy that I'm obsessed with in Belgium called Noel Goodar.
Yes.
And Noel Goodar described himself as a Belgian anarchist, and he felt... He felt that there was no better way of judging a man's character than by the way they behaved when they had a custard pie slammed in their face. Yeah,
this is fantastic.
And he used to watch Belgian cultural life, and anyone he felt in, like newsreaders, anyone he felt had got a bit up themselves, he and friends would go to a bar, they'd drink a lot of Belgian lager, they'd sing anarchist songs, and then they would ambush this person and custard pie them. And if the people kind of behaved with grace, then they would just leave him alone. There was one particular Belgian newsreader who was a sort of cod philosopher, bit of a ladies' man. Okay. He got so angry every time they custard pied him. They did him 32 times. But what I love about it, but this is...
Of course he got angry, Dom!
But this is the kicker. This is the kicker. They didn't film it. It wasn't for... And this is where we had this expression for trigger happy. It was called for the beauty. And it was just things you did just because it made you laugh. It wasn't for anyone else. It was just things we did in the van or just did... And we didn't even film while we were filming Trigger Happy. We'd call it for the beauty. And that... For the beauty is what really makes me laugh.
That's lovely. Did any... But in saying that, did any for the beauty end up on camera? End up on Trigger? Or as a rule, it's...
Unfortunately, it did, and it finished my career.
Oh.
Yeah.
Should we save that then? That could be a cliffhanger.
We can save that. We can save that one. Yeah. It very much did, wow. Sean. Yeah. It pretty much ended my mainstream comedy career.
Right. Yeah. Well, but For the beauty.
But just to finish and not go down, I said
yes, please.
I said he didn't film anything. He did after a bit. He starts to get quite well known, and so actually people started to film him doing it. So in the end, on bad VHS, they would film a couple. And famously, Bill Gates paid a visit to Brussels, so they had a go at Bill Gates. So if you're wanting to look up Noel Godin custard pieing someone, if you look up custard pieing Bill Gates, he's a very young Bill Gates. They get him, and they were bang on, weren't they? I mean,
and how did he react?
Not well. No, I'd hate it. I'd go mental. I mean, that's the joy. If everyone behaved really well, then you'd be out of a job, wouldn't you? Like,
yeah. But for the beauties, do you remember any of these moments that you shared that weren't for the camera whilst you were doing Tricky, that were just for you?
The ones we did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
well, my favourite one of all time. So Sam and I, in the first part of Trigger Happy...
Sorry, Dom. So I keep interrupting because sometimes...
That's fine.
And I know people get annoyed, but I like to kind of get all of the things I want to know.
I'm the worst interrupter, so it's fine. I'm glad you interrupt.
Sam, you keep mentioning Sam.
Sorry, yeah.
So let's just have a bit... Who's Sam? And then crack on.
So I did... My 20s were quite serious. I worked for ITN. I worked in Westminster. I was a diplomat. I then went back to ITN. I got fired. Ended up working as a researcher on the Mark Thomas comedy product. And then got a job on the Paramount Comedy Channel, where at the time everyone was there, like Little Britain were there, Sacha Baron Cohen was there.
Was Simon Pegg there?
Simon Pegg was there. Yeah. Lee Francis was in the art room. It was just so weird, the whole thing. Wow. And basically someone said to me, I was at the time doing satirical stunt comedy. I was taking on putting tents, putting Millennium Domes in Peter Mandelson's garden and chasing people around. And the guy who ran Paramount, the advertising, said, I'm paying £200,000 a year to advertise Paramount Comedy Channel. Why do I pay you to be our adverts? Like, do this stuff, and if it's funny, it'll get in the newspapers. And that's how I started. So he gave me that job. And that night, I went to a pub with my girlfriend, and I was going, it's fucking insane. This guy is paying me for the next year to go and fuck with Cool Britannia. But I can't. I haven't got a cameraman. I haven't got anything. And there's a guy behind the bar. It's the engineer in Primrose Hill. This is totally true. And he's eavesdropping. And I can see him eavesdropping. And he leans over and he goes, I can do that. And I said, what? He said, I can do that. I said, what? He said, I just listened to what you're saying. He said, it sounds great. He goes, I'm a cameraman. I can do that. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, well, okay, come to Paramount Comedy Channel on Monday morning. We'll test you out. Turns out that's Sam. Secondly, he wasn't a cameraman, he was an artist. He'd never used a camera, but because he's so high on the spectrum, he went and learnt the whole, he read the whole thing and basically turned up, and that was it. And he and I are so different, but we complement each other. And that's why Trig Happy was made. And it's that real sliding doors moment. Like, if I hadn't gone into that pub on that day and stuff, I love that shit.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So when I say Sam and I made Trig Happy together, and I'm the face of it. But actually, you know, I've done 15 years without Sam and I haven't been as funny. And we've just started filming again together and I'm fucking funny again. So it's a bit like being the bassist in Coldplay. It's like Chris Martin might be the front, but he needs the fucking bassist.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
All right, so we know who Sam is.
Right.
For the beauty.
Oh, yeah.
For the beauties.
So in the first Trigger Happy, one of the things I've always done, and one of the reasons I got kicked out of mainstream comedy as well, is that I like blagging. I'm quite lazy, so I like blagging travel wherever I can. Very first Trigger Happy, we think, right, where can we go? We went skiing for 2 weeks, and we literally then had to think of skiing jokes. And then we thought, we'll go to New York. Neither of us have been to New York. So we fly to New York. I end up doing a couple of jokes. On top of the Empire State Building, we do a spy thing and stuff like that, but nothing to warrant it at all.
This is when TV had money.
Yeah, it's fucking amazing. I mean, they just handed us £1 million to go and make Trigger Happy, and no one spoke to us for 9 months. It was, you know, we briefly thought about just going to Brazil and never coming back. That was it. Honestly, it crossed our mind. Yeah. But anyway, so we're just Channel 4 are paying us to be idiot tourists in New York. So we go to Katz's Deli, you know, like the famous deli.
Yeah.
So we go there and we sit down at a table, and I can't remember if When Harry Met Sally had come out before, but that's where it's filmed, the orgasm scene and stuff. So it would have been before. Sorry, it would be before this. Yeah. So I'm so into this. I love it, you know, like that. And I'm trying to be a bit of hey, I'm a New Yorker, you know, like that. And they're all like, hey, fucking shut your mouth, you know, like that. So this guy comes up. And he said, what would you like? I said, hey, I'd like some pastrami. He said, what? And I said, I'd like some pastrami. He goes, what the fuck are you talking like that? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to be funny. And he gets really angry, yeah? And then he cracks, you know, and he's joking. He's going, hey, I'm yanking your chain, buddy, that's fine. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, you've taken on the wrong fucking guy, yeah? So we wait till... So he goes, don't worry about it. Like, I know you guys are tourists, you limeys. So we wait to the end of the meal. And then after the meal, I go up and he's behind the counter. And I go, excuse me. He goes, yeah. And I go, I just wanted to say about what happened earlier there. I'm really embarrassed. He goes, oh, forget about it. Don't worry about it. I go, no, genuinely. I think... Obviously, I'm new here in town and I've made you unhappy and upset. He goes, no, I was fucking joking. Get over it. I go, no, but I do just want to say anything I did wrong. I'm really, really sorry. He goes, yeah, no problem. So then the next day, for the next week, we sent flowers. We sent cards. We rang at least 4 times a day, just saying hi. Is Charles there? His name is Charles. I'm just like, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm that British guy. I just can't get it out of my head. And just like, I just feel so stupid saying pastrami when it's salt beef. And I've obviously embarrassed your culture. And he's going, hey, kid, stop fucking ringing me, okay? It's a fucking joke. And we did that for 2 years. Like, we used to send, once a week, we'd send cards. We'd send him postcards from random places around the world. So that's for the beauty. It just made me laugh. What makes me laugh is...
Hang on, I need a minute. That's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
That's so puerile.
Yeah.
It's so immature.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
What makes me laugh?
It's fantastic.
When people ask me what makes me laugh,
God.
I now know what makes me laugh. And it's travelling vast distances, making a massive effort to do something totally pointless. The more pointless it can be, the better it is. And that's what makes me laugh.
Oh dear, Dom, you've got me. That's
good. I thought you'd appreciate that.
That's very good.
What I like though, because I hate those sort of professional yuck. I'm a bit of a comedy. And I'm like, okay, you think you're a comedy? I'm gonna fucking show you some comedy, buddy, till you can't breathe.
Right.
So that was for the beauty thing.
Yeah, that's for the beauty. That's very good.
Yeah.
So let's just go back. You told me about, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah, I'm fine.
But you went to 2 boarding schools.
Yeah, I'm not showing off, but yeah.
Yeah. When, why, and when did?
Because that's how it works.
Okay,
at 7, you get 10. You get sent to a sort of a pre-paedophile school, I think, a sort of where they're training you up. So I went to one called the Dragon School, which is probably the poshest prep school in Britain, and
still.
Yeah.
Do you think? Right. Okay.
I mean, there's a couple of ones that Royals went to, which are kind of very small ones, but this one's, every sort of Goldman Sachs person goes to now, and it's insane. And the people, some of Radiohead were at school with me. Tim Henman was there. One of the Natchballs that was blown up on Mountbatten's boat was there. There was a Getty there. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there. Most of them are now in the Tory cabinet, or most of them are now all running this country, which is why we're so fucked.
Right.
Which is why I'm glad I went the squirrel route.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. What does it feel like to, when you've left boarding school, what does it feel like? And I know this is a difficult question because you wouldn't know any other way. So I appreciate that when I ask it. But then boarding school finishes and you're out into the quote-unquote real world.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So what it does, all boarding school really teaches you in England is blagging. And when you're bullied, you're taught to attack first, so which is why I'm very defensive. You're aggressive. You hide everything, and you just learn. No one tells you this, but you just assume. Like there's a guy. I remember my first teacher at the Dragon. He's obviously way older than he's 50 or whatever, and we're 7-year-old, 8-year-old kids. He'd call all of us sir, and we finally asked him, "Why do you call us sir?" Because at least one of you is going to be prime minister. Now thinking back at that, that's an insanely, positive place to be, because they're not saying you're going to be a loser, but that's a fucking weird place to grow up.
Yes.
The sort of the elite training, all that stuff.
Yes.
And then my next school was set up, it's called Haileybury. It was originally set up to train people to run India. People used to go and, in the civil service and run India. So when India became independent, they must have had a thought, what the fuck do we do now? And then they just thought, oh, fuck it, let's crack on. So I'm fully trained to run India should it come, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You don't think that's for you?
Yeah. But my answer is when you go out into the real world, well, I went to uni, for instance. So if you've been to boarding school, university is fucking easy. You're walking around going, well, this is a bit small, and you're used to being away from home, whereas everyone else, it's the first time they've left home. They're all weeping, and so in that way, it's really good. But I think one of the big reasons I had my big panic attack was because your life is so structured, and suddenly I was out in this freestyle. I couldn't cope with the freedom of the world.
Well, tell me how that structure helped you if it did at all, that structure that you learned that is...
I don't think it's ever helped me. I hated it when I was there. I hated the rules. I hated the regulations. But I think in a way, because I was living in a war zone and my parents were divorcing, it probably kept everything together until you leave. And then it was just like, there's no one looking at, there's nothing. You've just gone.
Okay.
So I don't think it helped at all. I think it helps some people, because some people, most of the sort of people that run the country go to that, then they go to an Oxford college, which is basically the same sort of thing.
Yeah. And
then they join the Tory party, or they join a massive company. So they live in these institutions that have rules and stuff. And I've done, my life has been the complete opposite of what I was trained to do, because it's just got, like I'd meet some people I went to school with occasionally, and they look at my financial life and the way I live my life. And they're just, I can see them almost having panic attacks on my behalf. Like, how can you live like that? And I don't know, I'm just like constantly on the edge of a cliff. And it's just, I got to drive forward, because if I stop, I'll die.
So what uni did you go to?
I went to the School of Oriental and African Studies in London.
Sorry?
London School of Oriental and African Studies. There are two places. They're called SOAS and CEAS. School of Oriental and African Studies teach Arabic, Hebrew, all the Middle East stuff. And then CEAS, Eastern and Slavonic, teach Russian, Slavic stuff. And it's basically the only place apart from Oxford and Cambridge where you get approached to be a spy, because everyone speaks languages. And there's a trigger-happy joke where I went back to SOAS and I'm slicked back wearing a blazer, and I stop this woman. She's walking down. I go, "Hello, are you a student here?" She goes, yes, I am. It's a very sporty Japanese girl. I go, "I'll cut to the chase. I represent the British Secret Service, and I'm just wondering whether you've thought about what you're going to do when you leave here." She goes, "Oh, well, yes, I have actually. I'm very interested in intelligence work. I have applied to the Foreign Office, and I'm very sporty." And I said, "This would involve us moving you to another country, putting you in a job, and then you'll get a phone call, and you'd either have to kill someone or do some sort of sexual activity." She goes, "Yes, I'm very sporty." I said, "Great." And I gave her my card, and I said, "Just leave a message and say the word mugwuffin," which is what my new show is called. And for the next 2 weeks, this woman just kept leaving messages, "Mugwuffin, mugwuffin." And I was doing the speakeasy that you did with me in Cheltenham, and this guy turns up, and it's her brother.
This is the monthly nights you have in Cheltenham.
In Cheltenham, that you came and did a set at. And this guy came up to me afterwards, and he goes, "You did something on my sister." And I said, "Whoa." And I, "What?" And he said, "Well, she was the girl that you recruited." And I said, "Well, can I ask what she does now?" And he went weird, and he said, "I can't tell you." And I'm thinking, I put two and two together. He can't tell me. And Cheltenham is the home of GCHQ.
Yeah.
She fucking became a spy. It's unbelievable. And, I mean, she was so unsuited to it, but it was great.
That's the end of part one. Hit the link in the episode description, or go to patreon.com/classclown to hear part two straight away. And while you are there, you will also get some exclusive content with Dom as he answers your questions. That's it for now. I'm Seann Walsh, and I'll see you next week.